I slammed my laptop shut, breathing hard. The images I just saw refused to leave my mind, burned into my brain like some twisted brand. There she is, my wife, smiling, laughing, in another man's arms. My blood boils, my chest tightens, and I feel the weight of every broken promise and shattered trust pressing down on me. It had been a regular afternoon, or so I thought. I had come home early from work, something I rarely do, and was about to catch up on some emails when I saw the subject line. "You need to see this?" My first thought was that it was some spam, but curiosity got the better of me. What followed was a torrent of betrayal, each photo more damning than the last. The email had come from an anonymous address, but it was the contents that made my heart hammer in my chest. Photos of her in places I never knew she had been. And the last one, God, the last one, came with a location tag. A specific place I didn't recognize, but close enough for me to find her. I shoved my laptop away and grabbed my keys. My hands are shaking so bad. It takes me 2 tries to get the car started. Every second, every thought feels like fire. My vision blurs at the edges, but I force myself to breathe, to focus. I can't afford to lose it now. As I peel out of the driveway, the sun begins to dip, casting long shadows over the streets. It feels like the world itself is mocking me, as if darkness is closing in to match the betrayal I feel. My mind races with every possible outcome, every way this could go. Should I confront her right there? Should I gather more evidence? No, there's no time to think. I need to see it for myself. 15 minutes later, I pull up to the location from the email. It's a small, dimly lit bar on the edge of town, the kind of place where secrets go to hide. The parking lot is half full, and I recognize her car, parked near the back. My pulse thunders in my ears. I park a few spaces away and sit there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. My breathing is ragged, and I know I have 2 options. Confront her with all the rage I'm holding back, or walk in calmly and assess the situation. Neither choice seems easy, but I can't sit here forever. I take a deep breath and step out of the car. Each step toward the bar feels heavier, like the universe is giving me one last chance to turn back. But I can't. I won't. I reach the door, and with a heart full of pain and fury, I push it open. The door swings open, and the bar's warm, dimly lit interior washes over me. The smell of cheap beer and cigarette smoke hits my nostrils, but I barely notice. My eyes scan the crowd, searching, heart thudding so loudly it's a miracle no one else hears it. The place is half full, filled with the low hum of conversation and occasional bursts of laughter. Normal, everyday sounds that feel out of place with the storm raging inside me. And then, I see her. She's sitting at a corner booth, her head tilted back in laughter. A man sits beside her, close enough that his arm brushes hers with every movement. He's tall, well-built, with a charming smile that's too perfect to be real. They look like a couple from a goddamn romance movie, sharing drinks and jokes, oblivious to the world, oblivious to me. For a moment, I feel frozen, like I've stepped outside my own body. I watch them from a distance, my wife's smile more radiant than I've seen it in years. It cuts me deeper than any knife ever could. How long has she been this happy without me? How long has she shared moments like these with someone else? My fists clench, and I have to force myself to let go before I do something stupid. Violence isn't the answer. I've told myself that 1,000 times. But right now, it feels like the only outlet for the betrayal that's eating me alive. I push the thought down, hard, and try to remember why I'm here. I can't just charge in. I need a plan, a way to corner her without making a scene. The last thing I want is to give her an easy way out, an excuse to spin the story in her favor. So, I take a deep breath and walk toward the bar, my hands still shaking. I order a whiskey, something strong to steady my nerves, and take a seat where I can still see her but remain hidden in the shadows. My phone buzzes in my pocket, and I pull it out. It's a message from her. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up for me." The lie stings, but it's what I expected. My lips curl into a humorless smile. She doesn't know I'm here. She thinks she's safe. I watch her, trying to catch any hint of guilt in her movements, but there's none. She's relaxed, leaning into him as he whispers something in her ear. The way she looks at him makes my stomach churn, and for a split second, I'm not sure I can do this. Maybe I should just walk away, pretend I never saw the photos, never came here. Maybe ignorance really is bliss. But no, I've come too far. I can't let this slide. I drain my whiskey, the burn doing little to soothe the ache inside me, and stand up. It's time to face the truth, no matter how much it hurts. I step away from the bar and head straight for their booth. Each step feels heavier, every muscle in my body tense and ready for the confrontation I know is coming. She finally notices me when I'm just a few feet away, her eyes widening in shock, and the color drains from her face. "Hey, honey," I say, my voice steady despite the rage boiling beneath the surface. "Hope I'm not interrupting." Her eyes widen as if she's just seen a ghost. She opens her mouth, but no words come out. The man beside her shifts uncomfortably, his gaze bouncing between us like he's stumbled into a nightmare. My wife, my faithful wife, looks like a deer caught in headlights, the guilt written so plainly across her face that I almost wish I hadn't come. Almost. "W, what are you doing here?" She stammers, her voice cracking. I can feel everyone's eyes turning toward us, the bar falling into a curious hush. It's not quite the scene I wanted to make, but at this point, I don't care. Let them watch. Let them see what a public betrayal looks like. What am I doing here? I repeat, my voice dripping with disbelief. I feel the rage bubbling up, and I struggle to keep my composure. "I should ask you the same thing, but I think it's obvious, isn't it?" She tries to speak, but the words stick in her throat. Her face flushes with embarrassment, her hands trembling as she reaches for the napkin in front of her. The man beside her, this stranger she's sharing a cozy evening with, clears his throat as if trying to decide whether he should step in or melt into the seat. I turn to him, narrowing my eyes. "And who the hell are you?" I demand, my voice a low growl. I don't need to know his name, but asking makes him squirm. He looks like he'd rather be anywhere but here, his confident demeanor crumbling under the weight of this unexpected drama. "I am just a friend," he mutters, avoiding my gaze. I laugh, and it sounds harsh, even to my own ears. "A friend? Right, just a friend. Is that what you call sitting close enough to whisper sweet nothings into my wife's ear?" I don't care that my voice is getting louder, that people are definitely staring now. The shock of betrayal feels like a fire in my chest, and I can't keep it in. My wife finally finds her voice. "It's not what it looks like," she says, her eyes pleading with me. "I can explain." "Oh, please." I cut her off. "Don't insult me. I've seen the photos. I know about the lies, the sneaking around. You were going to work late, right?" I wave my phone at her, the screen still lit up with her last message. "How convenient that your work led you here." The color drains from her face even more, and she looks down, unable to meet my eyes. The man beside her starts to stand, but I step forward, my posture tense, making it clear that he should stay put. "You," I say, pointing a finger at him. "You don't get to just walk away. Sit your ass down." He hesitates, then slowly sinks back into his seat, his bravado completely gone. I can't tell if he's scared or just ashamed, but either way, it gives me a small, bitter sense of satisfaction. My wife is still fumbling for an excuse, her voice cracking. "It's complicated, okay? You don't understand." I slam my hand down on the table, making the drinks rattle. "Complicated?" I repeat, my voice dangerously calm. "You think this is complicated? No. What's complicated is the life we built together. The trust one gave you. And for what? So you could throw it all away for a fling?" Tears well up in her eyes, but they do nothing to soften my anger. I can't let myself feel pity, not now. Not after everything. I take a step back, my body still buzzing with adrenaline. "You know what?" I say, my voice cold. "I'm done. We're done. Enjoy your drinks, enjoy each other, because you won't have me waiting at home anymore." With that, I turn on my heel and walk out of the bar, my heart hammering, my head spinning. The cool night air hits me, and I gulp it down like it's the only thing keeping me from collapsing. I'm free. Free from her lies, her betrayal. But as I stand there, alone under the streetlights, The weight of what just happened crashes into me, leaving me breathless. I stumble to my car, my legs feeling weak as the adrenaline drains out of my system. My hands are still shaking as I reach for the door handle. I grip it tightly, trying to anchor myself to something solid, something that won't dissolve into lies like everything else in my life seems to have. The cold metal of the door seeps into my palm, and I focus on that, using it to keep myself from spiraling. I take a deep breath, then another. It doesn't help much, but at least I can see straight now. My mind is a storm of thoughts, each one more painful than the last. Memories flash through my head. Our wedding day, the quiet mornings spent in bed, the promises whispered in the dark. All of it feels like a cruel joke now, a story that was never real. My phone buzzes in my pocket, jolting me back to the present. I pull it out, and my wife's name lights up the screen. I stare at it, my thumb hovering over the decline button. Every part of me wants to hear what excuse she'll offer, what pathetic attempt she'll make to justify her betrayal. But I know that if I listen to her voice right now, I might break. I let the call ring out, watching as the screen goes dark again. A voicemail notification pops up a moment later, but I ignore it. Instead, I climb into the driver's seat, my body moving on autopilot. I can't go home, not yet. The house will feel too empty, too haunted by the ghost of what we once had. Instead, I drive aimlessly, the streetlights blurring past as I try to get a grip on the chaos inside me. After a while, I find myself parked at the edge of a nearby lake. It's a spot we used to visit when we were happy, back when everything felt simple and unbreakable. I used to believe that love could weather any storm, but now it feels like a foolish, childish hope. I step out of the car and walk to the water's edge, the gravel crunching under my shoes. The lake is still, almost eerily so, as if it's holding its breath along with me. I sit down, the damp chill of the earth seeping through my jeans, and bury my face in my hands. The anger has burned out now, leaving only a raw ache that I don't know how to deal with. My phone buzzes again, and this time it's a text from her. "Please come home. We need to talk." I let out a bitter laugh, the sound echoing across the empty lake. Talk. How many times had we talked? How many times had I trusted her, believed her, even when the signs were there, whispering to me that something was wrong? I'd ignored them all, too afraid of what I'd find if I dug deeper. And now here I am, broken anyway, with nothing left to salvage. I stare at the message, my mind running through every possible scenario. Should I go back and confront her again? Demand more answers, more apologies that will only feel hollow? Or should I just leave, pack up what I need and walk away from this mess for good? The idea of leaving appeals to me, but it also terrifies me. Everything I've built, everything I've known, is tied to her. How do I just let go of that? A light breeze rustles the leaves, and I close my eyes, trying to find some clarity. I know one thing for sure. I can't face her tonight. I need time, space to think without her lies clouding my judgment. But as much as I want to run, a part of me still craves closure. A part of me that's not ready to let go without understanding why. I open my eyes and watch the ripples in the water, each one spreading out until it vanishes. Maybe that's what I need too, to let the pain ripple through me until it fades, until I can breathe again. I take one last look at the lake before getting back into my car. Tonight, I'll find a place to stay, somewhere far from her and the memories we shared. Tomorrow, maybe, I'll decide what comes next. I pull out of the lake's parking lot, my headlights slicing through the darkness as I drive with no real destination in mind. The roads are mostly empty, and the silence feels heavier than it should. Every red light, every pause in the drive, gives my mind the space to run wild, replaying everything I've just seen, every lie she's ever told. My grip on the steering wheel tightens, the leather creaking under my fingers. Eventually, I end up at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. It's the kind of place where people go when they don't want to be found, and that suits me just fine. I check in, barely registering the receptionist's disinterested look as she hands over a key. Room 204. It's small, dimly lit, and smells faintly of bleach and stale air. But at least it's a place to think, a place to be away from her. I toss my bag onto the bed and sit down heavily beside it. The quiet of the room feels oppressive, pressing in on all sides. I can hear the faint hum of traffic from the highway and the occasional thud of footsteps from the room above. It should be calming, this isolation, but it only makes me feel more restless. My phone vibrates again. Another text from her. Please, just let me explain. Explain. I shake my head, my jaw clenching. What is there to explain? I've seen the photos, witnessed her betrayal with my own eyes. Words can't fix this, can't glue together the pieces of my shattered trust. But still, there's a small part of me, buried deep, that wants to hear what she has to say. Maybe for closure, or maybe because some foolish part of me still hopes there's more to the story. I toss my phone onto the nightstand, resisting the urge to throw it against the wall. Instead, I lie back on the bed, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. Memories flood back uninvited, little moments from our life together. The way she used to light up when she saw me walk into her room. The nights we stayed up talking about our dreams and fears. The time we drove cross-country, singing along to old rock songs with the windows down. I feel a lump in my throat, and I swallow hard, refusing to let the tears come. She doesn't deserve my tears. But grief has a way of creeping up on you, even when you don't want it to. Because it's not just the betrayal that hurts. It's the loss of a future I thought we'd share, the erasure of a love I thought was real. I close my eyes, trying to block out the memories, but they only come back stronger. Her laughter, her touch, the promises she whispered in the dark. I hate how my heart still aches for her, how some part of me still wishes none of this had happened. But the pain is a reminder that I'm still alive, that I can feel, even if it's nothing but agony right now. A knock on the door jolts me out of my thoughts, and I sit up, heart pounding. Who would come here? Who would even know I'm here? I grab my phone, ready to call someone if I have to, and approach the door cautiously. Another knock, more insistent this time. I glance through the peephole and freeze. Standing there, looking just as shattered as I feel, is my best friend, Mike. His face is drawn, worry etched into every line, and I can see he's been looking for me. I unlock the door and let him in, my voice cracking as I ask, "How did you find me?" He steps inside, and for a moment, we just stand there, two friends brought together by circumstances neither of us wanted. He sighs heavily, closing the door behind him. "I got worried when you didn't answer my calls," he says, his voice low. "I went by your house, but when I didn't find you there, I checked the places I knew you'd go." I nod, swallowing the emotion threatening to choke me. Mike has always been there, always had my back, but tonight, I never expected to see him. The relief I feel is almost overwhelming. "Tell me everything," he says, pulling up a chair. "From the beginning." So, I do. I let it all out, every bitter, painful detail, and for the first time tonight, I feel the weight lift, just a little. Mike listens in silence as I recount every detail, from the moment I opened that email to the confrontation at the bar. His face is set in a grim expression, his jaw clenched tightly as he takes it all in. By the time I'm finished, my voice feels raw, and the weight of everything hangs heavy between us. I run a hand through my hair, feeling more exhausted than I've ever been. "Jesus, man," Mike finally says, shaking his head. "I knew things were off, but this?" He leans back in the chair, his hands clasped together as if he's trying to hold himself in check. "I'm so sorry. You don't deserve any of this." I manage a bitter smile. "Yeah, well, it doesn't change anything, does it?" The bitterness drips from my voice, and I hate how defeated I sound, how small the betrayal has made me feel. She kept it from me for God knows how long, and now, what am I supposed to do? Pretend it never happened? Mike leans forward, his eyes narrowing with a mix of anger and protectiveness. "No way in hell. You can't just let this slide. She needs to know there are consequences." He pauses, studying my face. "But, are you ready to walk away for good? Or is there any part of you that still wants to hear her side of things?" The question feels like a punch to the gut. Do I still want to hear her side? My instinct is to scream no, that nothing she says could change what she did. But deep down, there's a stubborn flicker of something. Hope, maybe, or just a desperate need for closure. I don't know, I admit, my voice cracking. "I want to hate her, Mike. I want to walk away and never look back. But part of me just needs to know why. Why she did it. Mike nods slowly, his expression softening. That's normal. Betrayal messes with your head, makes you question everything. But whatever you do, you've got to protect yourself. Don't let her manipulate you into thinking it was your fault. I laugh, but there's no humor in it. Trust me, I've already been blaming myself, wondering if I missed something, if I pushed her away somehow. But the truth is, she made her choice. I never saw it coming. Mike's eyes harden again. You didn't deserve this, and don't let her make you feel like you did. If she wants to explain herself, fine, but make sure it's on your terms, not hers. He pauses, and a shadow crosses his face. And if you need to crash at my place for a while, the couch is always yours. No questions asked. The offer brings a lump to my throat, and I nod, grateful for his friendship. Thanks, man. I might take you up on that. We sit in silence for a moment, the heaviness of the situation pressing down on us. Finally, Mike clears his throat. So what's your next move? He asks. Are you going back home, or are you planning on staying here for the night? I glance around the small, depressing motel room. It doesn't offer much comfort, but it's better than facing an empty home that used to be filled with love and warmth. I think I'll stay here, I say, my voice steady. Just for tonight. I need to clear my head before I decide anything. Mike stands up, his gaze lingering on me with concern. All right, but if you change your mind or need anything, you know where to find me. I nod, and he gives me a firm clap on the shoulder before heading for the door. Just before he leaves, he pauses, turning back. And hey, don't lose yourself over this. You're stronger than you think. The door closes softly behind him, and I'm left alone with my thoughts once more. Stronger than I think. Maybe he's right. Or maybe I'm more broken than I want to admit. Either way, I'm going to have to face her eventually, and I need to be ready. I lie back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, and brace myself for whatever comes next. I lie on the motel bed, my mind a mess of fractured memories and broken dreams. Sleep feels impossible, but exhaustion weighs on me like a heavy blanket. The room is so quiet that the faint hum of the air conditioner becomes deafening, each cycle of cool air cutting through the silence. I try to close my eyes, but the image of her face, her guilty, shocked expression at the bar, keeps flashing behind my eyelids. I reach over to the nightstand and grab my phone, unable to resist the temptation. There are 5 new messages from her, each one more desperate than the last. Please, we need to talk. I'm so sorry. Just come home, please. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. Let me explain. It's not what you think. Please, I'm begging you. Each message cuts into me, stirring a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. It's not what you think. How many times have I heard that line in movies and books, always from the mouths of cheaters and liars? And yet, the part of me that used to love her, maybe still does, wants to believe it, wants to hope there's some explanation that doesn't feel like a knife twisting in my gut. But there's no explanation that can erase those photos, or the way she leaned into that man, laughing, as if she didn't have a care in the world, as if the life we built together meant nothing to her. I throw my phone back onto the bed and sit up, running a hand over my face. Sleep isn't going to come, not tonight. I stand up and start pacing the small room, my mind racing. How did it come to this? How did we go from being so in love to this shattered mess? My stomach growls, a reminder that I haven't eaten anything since lunch, but the thought of food makes me feel sick. I need something else, some way to ground myself. I grab my wallet and head out of the room, locking the door behind me. The cool night air hits me, a welcome contrast to the suffocating heat of my emotions. I find a vending machine near the entrance and dig out some change, buying a bottle of water and a candy bar I know I won't finish. As I stand there, taking a sip of the water, a couple walks by, laughing and holding hands. They look young, carefree, like we used to be. A pang of envy hits me, and I have to look away, the sight of their happiness too painful to bear. I never thought I'd be here, at rock bottom, questioning everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. Back in my room, I force myself to sit down and take a few bites of the candy bar, hoping it will settle my stomach. It doesn't. Instead, it feels like lead, sinking heavy and cold inside me. I push the rest aside and run a hand through my hair, my thoughts turning to what Mike said. Don't lose yourself over this. You're stronger than you think. I need to be strong. I need to figure out what comes next. But the question that haunts me most is, how do I move on from here? Do I confront her, demand a real explanation, or do I cut her out of my life completely? Is there any chance of redemption, or is that just wishful thinking? I pull out my phone again and stare at her messages. With a sigh, I start typing a reply. My thumbs hover over the keyboard, the words coming slowly, painfully. We'll talk. Tomorrow. But only because I need to hear it from you. I hit send before I can change my mind, feeling a strange mixture of relief and dread. Tomorrow, I'll face her, and maybe then I'll finally get the answers I need. But for now, the night stretches on, unending and full of questions I'm not ready to answer. Morning comes too soon, bringing with it the harsh, unrelenting light of reality. I've barely slept, my mind replaying every moment from the bar and every word from her desperate messages. The motel room feels suffocating, the stale air clinging to my skin like a reminder of everything I've lost. I get up, splashing cold water on my face, and stare at my reflection in the cracked mirror. Dark circles ring my eyes, and the exhaustion is written all over my features. Today is the day I face her. I wish I felt more prepared, more ready to handle whatever lies she's going to try to sell me. But no matter how many ways I play it out in my mind, there's no scenario that feels right. Nothing about this is fair or simple. Betrayal never is. I grab my keys and leave the motel, the bright morning sun doing little to lift the heaviness in my chest. My car feels like a safe place, at least, a familiar space that holds no traces of her. But as I drive, the knot in my stomach only tightens. I don't head straight home. Instead, I take a detour to clear my head, driving through streets lined with memories. The park where we had picnics, the little cafe where we shared late breakfasts on lazy weekends, the trail where we used to hike together. Each spot feels like a graveyard of moments that once made me happy. Eventually, though, I can't delay any longer. I pull into the driveway of our house. No, I correct myself, my house. It's strange how even thinking of it as ours feels like a betrayal. The curtains are drawn, and the place looks exactly as I left it, but it feels different now. Tainted. I take a moment to steady myself before I walk to the front door, unlocking it with hands that don't feel quite steady. The house is silent, and I half expect her to jump out with an apology, a desperate attempt to fix what she's broken. But it's empty. I move slowly, my footsteps echoing in the quiet, and then I see her. She's sitting at the kitchen table, her hands clasped around a cup of coffee gone cold. Her eyes are red and swollen, and the sight of her so wrecked, so vulnerable, almost makes me falter. Almost. But then I remember the photos, the lies, the way she laughed with someone else, and my resolve hardens. She looks up when she hears me, her eyes wide with fear and guilt. "Hey," she says, her voice trembling. She tries to stand, but I hold up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. "Sit," I say, my voice colder than I've ever heard it. She sinks back into her chair, and I can see the way she braces herself, like she knows what's coming. Good. She should. I stay standing, leaning against the counter, needing the distance between us. "You wanted to explain," I say, my voice tight. "So talk. I'm here. But don't lie to me, because I'll know if you do." She nods, her eyes glistening with tears. "I'm not going to lie," she whispers, her voice cracking. "I owe you the truth." I cross my arms, waiting, and the silence stretches out until she finally speaks. "It started months ago," she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I swear I didn't. But I was feeling lost, unseen. You were always working, always so busy, and I felt like we were growing apart. I can't help the laugh that escapes me, bitter and incredulous. Growing apart? I echo. So your solution was to run into someone else's arms? To betray me? She flinches, but I press on. You think that justifies it? That makes it okay? Her tears spill over, but I force myself not to care. I have to stay strong, to hear her out without letting her see how much this is breaking me. I know it doesn't, she chokes out, her voice breaking. I know I've ruined everything, but I didn't want to lose you. I still don't. I grip the counter behind me, trying to hold myself together. You should have thought of that before, I say, my voice shaking. You don't get to ruin everything and then beg for forgiveness. She sobs, covering her face with her hands, and for a moment, I feel the urge to comfort her. But I don't move. I can't, because today isn't about her pain. It's about mine. The kitchen feels suffocating, heavy with emotions too raw to name. Her sobs echo in the quiet, each one slicing into the fragile armor I've built around my heart. But I can't let myself soften. Not yet. Not when the pain of her betrayal is still a fresh wound, bleeding with every breath I take. She wipes her face, her hands trembling, and looks up at me, her eyes desperate. I know I can't fix this, she says, her voice hoarse. I know I've hurt you more than I can ever make up for. But you have to understand, it was never about not loving you. I grit my teeth, the words sparking a fresh wave of anger. Then what was it about? I demand. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a hell of a lot like you didn't give a damn about me or our marriage. It looks like you threw everything away for a cheap thrill. Her shoulders slump, and she looks down at the table, as if she can't bear to meet my eyes. I was selfish, she admits. I wanted to feel wanted, to feel alive. But it wasn't about him, not really. It was about me, about trying to fill some empty part of myself. I shake my head, disbelief and fury swirling in my chest. So you risked everything for a feeling? I say, my voice rising. For some twisted sense of validation? Do you have any idea what you've done? What you've destroyed? She reaches for me, and I take a step back, the movement instinctive, as if her touch could hurt me even more. The rejection in her eyes is palpable, but I don't care. I need to keep my distance, need to protect whatever scraps of myself I have left. I'm so sorry, she whispers, her voice cracking. I never wanted to lose you. I thought I could control it, that it wouldn't get this far. But I was wrong. God, I was so wrong. I stare at her, my heart a mix of rage and heartbreak. Part of me wants to scream at her, to demand how she could be so careless, so cruel. Another part wants to walk away and never look back. But the worst part, the part one hates the most, still wants to believe in the love we once had, the love that feels like a distant memory now. You've destroyed my trust, I say, my voice low and unsteady. How am I supposed to believe anything you say now? How am I supposed to look at you and not see the lies? Her tears fall harder, and she wraps her arms around herself as if she's trying to hold herself together. I'll do anything, she pleads. Anything to make this right. Just tell me how. I laugh again, a hollow, broken sound. Make it right? I echo. You think there's a way to fix this? To go back to the way things were? There's no magic button, no easy fix. You broke something in me, and I don't know if it can ever be repaired. She crumbles at my words, and for a moment, I wonder if I'm being too cruel. But then I remember the photos, the laughter she shared with another man, and I harden again. She needs to feel this, to understand the magnitude of what she's done. Silence falls between us, thick and suffocating. I take a shaky breath, trying to find some sense of clarity in the chaos of my emotions. You said you'd do anything, I say finally, my voice cold. Then give me space. Give me time to decide if I even want to try and save this marriage. Her eyes widen, and I see the hope flicker there, fragile and desperate. Does that mean you're not leaving me? She asks, her voice so small. I close my eyes, the answer feeling like a weight in my chest. I don't know, I admit. Right now, I just need you to leave me alone. Go stay with a friend or something. I can't think straight with you here. She hesitates, but then she nods, her face crumpling with fresh grief. Okay, she whispers. I'll pack a bag. I watch as she stands and walks away, her steps heavy, and for a moment, I almost call her back. Almost. But I stay silent, listening to the sound of her retreating footsteps and feeling the cold emptiness she's left behind. The house falls silent as she disappears up the stairs, her footsteps fading into the distance. I'm left standing in the kitchen, the tension slowly seeping out of the room, but leaving a different kind of heaviness behind. I sink into a chair, my body feeling like a shell, hollowed out and empty. It's as if all the energy I had has been drained, leaving me with nothing but the ache of betrayal. I look around the room, the place that used to feel like a sanctuary, and everything seems tainted now. The table where we shared meals, the counter where she'd lean against me while we cooked together. All of it feels stained with memories that no longer feel safe. My hands shake, and I run them through my hair, trying to find some way to steady myself. From upstairs, I hear the faint sound of a suitcase being unzipped, the quiet rustle of clothes being packed. It's surreal, hearing her pack her things like this. Just yesterday, we were living in a normal routine, with all the everyday annoyances and comforts of a long marriage. Now, it feels like we're living in a broken fairy tale, the kind where there's no happy ending. My phone buzzes on the table, and I glance at it, half expecting another message from her. But it's Mike again, checking in. "You okay? Want me to come over?" I don't answer right away. I'm not sure what okay even means anymore, and I don't know if I want company. Part of me feels like I need to sit with this pain, to let it wash over me so I can figure out how to breathe through it. But I also know I'm dangerously close to drowning in it, and the idea of facing this all alone feels suffocating. Before I can decide, I hear her coming back down the stairs, her suitcase thumping softly against each step. I stand, bracing myself for whatever comes next. She pauses at the bottom of the stairs, looking small and defeated, her eyes swollen and red. The suitcase looks too big for her to handle, and for a brief, irrational moment, I have the urge to take it from her, to ease her burden. But I don't move. She brought this on herself. "I'm leaving," she says, her voice breaking. "I'll stay with a friend until you're ready to talk. If you ever are." She bites her lip, tears threatening to fall again. "I'm so sorry for everything." I want to say something, anything, but the words stick in my throat. Sorry. The word feels so hollow, so useless. She waits for a moment, as if hoping I'll stop her, but I can't. I can't give her the comfort she's searching for. Finally, she turns and pulls the suitcase to the door. The sound of it sliding across the floor echoes in the silence, a final, painful reminder that things will never be the same. The door opens, and she steps outside, pausing for a moment. The morning light casts her in harsh shadows, and she looks back at me, her eyes searching mine one last time. "I love you," she says, her voice cracking. I swallow hard, my heart clenching, but I don't say it back. I can't. Not after everything. She nods as if she expected it, and then she closes the door behind her. The sound of the door clicking shut reverberates through the house, and I'm left standing there, feeling more alone than I ever have in my life. I sink back into the chair, the silence pressing in from all sides. My phone buzzes again, and this time, I answer Mike's text. "Yeah, come over," I type. I could use the company. I set the phone down and lean back, closing my eyes. The house feels empty now, almost unbearably so. But at least for a moment, I don't have to face the emptiness alone. The knock on the door comes sooner than I expect. I push myself up from the chair, feeling like each step through the empty, silent house takes an eternity. Opening the door, I find Mike standing there, a concerned look on his face. He's wearing his old leather jacket, the one he always pulls out when he senses a storm coming, and there's a six-pack of beer in his hand. "Hey," he says quietly, and in that one word, I hear all the sympathy, all the understanding that only a friend like Mike can offer. "Hey," I reply, my voice rough. I step aside to let him in, and he looks around, his eyes taking in the empty space, the way everything feels off. He doesn't say anything, just sets the six-pack down on the kitchen table and pulls two beers free, cracking them open and handing one to me. We sit in silence for a minute, the only sound the gentle fizz of the carbonation. I take a sip, the cold drink doing nothing to ease the tightness in my chest, but at least it gives me something to do with my hands. "So," Mike says finally, leaning back in his chair, "she's gone?" I nod, my grip tightening around the bottle. "Yeah, packed a bag and left." Mike studies me for a moment, his eyes searching mine. How are you holding up? It's a simple question, but it feels loaded, like he knows the answer is more complicated than words can express. I laugh, a short, bitter sound. I don't know. Angry, hurt, confused. Take your pick. I set the beer down, staring at the condensation pooling around the base of the bottle. I thought we were solid, you know? I never saw this coming. Mike's jaw clenches, and he looks down, his fingers tapping against the bottle. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who surprise us the most, he says, his voice tight. But that doesn't make it hurt any less. We fall into a heavy silence, the weight of the betrayal hanging between us. Mike and I have been through a lot together. Rough breakups, career struggles, family drama. But this feels different, like a blow neither of us knows how to process. He's always been my rock, the one I could count on when everything else felt like it was falling apart, and I can see that he's trying to be that for me now. I just keep thinking about what she said. I admit, the words tumbling out before I can stop them. About feeling unseen, about me being too busy. And I wonder, did I do this? Did I push her away? Mike's eyes narrow, and he sets his beer down with a thud. Don't do that, he says, his voice firm. Don't blame yourself for her choices. You're a good man. You work hard, you love deeply, and if she couldn't see that, if she couldn't come to you and tell you how she was feeling before running into someone else's arms, that's on her. Not you. The conviction in his voice is like a lifeline, something to hold on to in the storm of my doubt. I nod, but the guilt still lingers, a dark whisper in the back of my mind. It's going to take time, I realize, to sort through all of this, to untangle the truth from the lies. Mike must see the struggle in my eyes, because he sighs and reaches into his jacket pocket, pulling out a deck of cards. All right, he says, his tone turning slightly lighter. I know this might sound ridiculous, but humor me. We're playing a few rounds of poker, and for every hand you lose, you have to tell me something good about yourself. No self-pity allowed. Got it? I blink at him, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth despite the pain in my chest. Poker therapy? I ask, raising an eyebrow. He grins, the first real smile I've seen from him today. Exactly. Now deal. I can't help but chuckle as I reach for the cards, the simple act of shuffling them bringing a sense of normalcy back into the chaos. It's a small thing, but sometimes small things are enough to keep you afloat. For now, that's all I need. The cards shuffle smoothly between my hands, the familiar snap and slide of paper on paper oddly comforting. I deal out the first hand, trying to focus on the game instead of the mess that is my life. Mike watches me closely, a calculating glint in his eye, and I know he's going to make me work for every victory. We've played poker together countless times, but this time feels different, like a distraction and an interrogation wrapped in one. We pick up our cards, and I glance at mine, trying not to let any emotion show. Mike raises an eyebrow and leans forward, playing his first move. So, he says, his voice casual but probing. First question. What's the one thing about yourself you're proudest of? I groan, tossing a chip into the center of the table. Really, Mike? You're going to make me do this? He grins, unapologetic. Absolutely. Therapy, remember? I sigh, staring at my cards. Pride feels like a foreign concept right now, but I dig deep, trying to find something, anything, to answer him with. Fine, I say. I'm proud of how hard I've worked. Everything I've built in my career, the sacrifices I made to get where I am. I never took shortcuts, and I earned every bit of it. Mike nods, his expression turning serious. Good. See? That wasn't so hard. He plays his next card, and I can tell he's holding back, letting me win the first hand on purpose. I give him a skeptical look, and he just shrugs. What? I'm going easy on you this round. Don't expect it to last. I manage a small smile, but it fades quickly as we move into the next hand. The game goes on, and I lose a few more rounds, each one forcing me to share something positive about myself. At first, it feels impossible. How can I think about anything good when everything is falling apart? But Mike's relentless optimism, his unwavering support, keeps pushing me to find reasons to believe in myself. I'm loyal, I admit during one round, tossing my cards down with a sigh. Maybe too loyal. But when I commit to something or someone, I'm all in. I don't walk away easily. Mike doesn't say anything for a moment, just studies me with that serious, thoughtful look of his. And that's not a flaw, he says quietly. It's what makes you a good person. It's why you deserve someone who appreciates you, who doesn't take that loyalty for granted. His words sting, but in a way that feels necessary, like pressing on a wound to make sure it heals right. I take a sip of my beer, the cold liquid doing little to wash away the bitterness of the truth. Then why does it feel like I failed? I ask, my voice cracking. Mike sets his cards down, his expression softening. Because betrayal makes you question everything. It makes you feel like you weren't enough, even when you were. But don't let her choices define your worth. You're more than the way she treated you. I look away, trying to blink back the tears that threaten to fall. It's hard to accept kindness right now, to let myself feel anything but anger and pain. But Mike's words sink in, settling somewhere deep in my chest, and I know he's right. I have to hold on to that, even if it hurts. We play a few more rounds, the tension in the room easing bit by bit. It's not a magic cure. It doesn't make the betrayal vanish, doesn't erase the heartbreak, but it gives me something to focus on, a way to breathe through the pain. Eventually, the game winds down, and Mike leans back in his chair, crossing his arms. All right, he says, his tone shifting. Now that we've played, what's next? Are you going to talk to her again, or are you done for good? The question hangs heavy in the air, and I take a moment to think, to really think. I don't know, I admit, my voice raw. Part of me wants to walk away, to never look back. But another part, I feel like I need to hear everything, to get the full truth before I can make a decision. Mike nods, his expression understanding. Then take your time. Don't let her rush you. This is your life, and you get to decide how you move forward. We sit there in the fading afternoon light, the shadows growing longer around us, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I feel a glimmer of hope. It's small, fragile, but it's there. And right now, that's enough. The rest of the afternoon passes in a blur of conversation and small distractions, Mike doing his best to keep me anchored in reality. We end up talking about old memories, stupid adventures we had in college, and the time we drove halfway across the state just to watch a football game that ended in a rainstorm. It's comforting, in a way, to remember that there was a life before this pain, before betrayal made everything feel twisted and wrong. As the shadows stretch across the room, Mike finally stands, grabbing the empty beer bottles and tossing them in the recycling bin. You know where to find me if you need anything, he says, clapping a hand on my shoulder. And I mean anything. I nod, feeling a warmth I haven't felt in days. Thanks, Mike. Really. He gives me a small smile, his eyes serious. Take care of yourself, man. And remember, you're not alone in this. He leaves, and the house falls into silence once more. But this time, the emptiness doesn't feel quite so crushing. I sit for a while, letting his words sink in, and then I make a decision. I need to hear the whole truth, every detail she's been keeping from me. Maybe it won't change anything, but at least I'll know. At least I'll have some clarity, even if it only confirms that the love we once shared is gone for good. I grab my phone and scroll through my messages, finding her last one. Please, I'm begging you. My finger hovers over the screen, and I take a deep breath before typing out a reply. We need to talk. Come over tomorrow morning. No more lies. The response is almost immediate. I'll be there. The anxiety hits me the second I set the phone down. Tomorrow morning, I'll be face to face with her again, and I have no idea how I'll handle it. The anger still simmers beneath the surface, but there's also an ache, a sense of loss that refuses to fade. How do you prepare for a conversation that might shatter you even more than you already are? I force myself to eat something, though the food tastes like ash in my mouth. I take a long, hot shower, trying to wash away the tension in my muscles, but it doesn't help much. Sleep still feels like a distant fantasy, but I know I need rest if I'm going to face her tomorrow. I lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, the hours dragging by like years. Memories play in my mind, unbidden and cruel. Her laughter, the way she'd wrap her arms around me in the morning, The quiet nights we spent watching TV and making plans for the future. I don't know if those memories will ever stop hurting, if there will ever be a time when they don't feel like knives in my chest. But I have to believe that facing the truth will be the first step. Eventually, exhaustion pulls me under, and I drift into a restless sleep, haunted by dreams I can't quite remember when I wake. The morning comes too quickly. The light filters through the blinds, soft and unforgiving, and I feel the weight of what's coming. I get up, get dressed, and try to brace myself for the conversation that could change everything. There's a tightness in my chest, but I push it down, focusing on the need to stay strong, to stay composed. A knock sounds at the door, and I freeze, my heart pounding. This is it, the moment of truth. I take a deep breath, steadying myself, and then I walk to the door and open it. She's standing there, looking fragile and uncertain, her eyes still red from crying. She's holding a coffee cup in one hand, a nervous habit she's always had when she's trying to find courage. "Hi," she whispers, her voice breaking. I nod, stepping aside to let her in. "Come in," I say, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. We sit in the living room, a chasm of hurt and betrayal between us. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. Finally, she sets the coffee cup down and looks up at me, her eyes filled with a sadness that almost makes me feel sorry for her. Almost. "I know you hate me," she says, her voice trembling. "But please let me explain." I lean forward, my hands clasped tightly together. "Then start talking," I say, "and don't hold anything back." She takes a shaky breath, her fingers twisting together as she searches for the words. The tension in the room is suffocating, and I'm doing everything I can to keep my face neutral, to not give away the storm of emotions boiling beneath the surface. This is it, the moment I've been dreading and needing all at once. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she starts, her voice cracking. "I know that doesn't make it better, but I need you to understand that I never planned any of this. I never wanted to hurt you." I let out a humorless laugh, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "And yet, here we are," I say. "So, why don't you tell me how it happened? Because I've been going over it in my head, trying to figure out when everything fell apart, and I can't." She flinches at my tone, and for a split second, I almost feel bad. But then I remember the photos, the betrayal, and I steel myself. She has to feel the weight of this. "It started about 6 months ago," she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "Things between us were strained. You were working late almost every night, and when you were home, you were always exhausted. We stopped talking about anything that mattered. It felt like we were just coexisting, like you were a ghost moving through the house." My hands tighten into fists, but I force myself to stay quiet, to let her finish. "I know I should have talked to you about how I was feeling," she continues, tears welling up in her eyes. "But I didn't. Instead, I threw myself into my job, into anything that made me feel alive. And that's when I met him." Her voice breaks on the last word, and she looks away, ashamed. I feel a wave of nausea roll over me. "So what?" I demand, my voice rising. "He gave you attention, and that was enough to throw away everything we built together?" She shakes her head quickly, her hair falling into her face. "No, it wasn't like that. At first, he was just a friend, someone who listened when I felt invisible. And then, one night, things went too far. It was a mistake. A horrible, stupid mistake. The word mistake grates against my nerves, and I can't stop the anger from spilling out. A mistake? I snap. A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash. You don't accidentally cheat on your spouse. It's not a slip-up, it's a choice." Tears stream down her face, but I feel no sympathy. She needs to feel this, to understand the magnitude of what she's done. "I know," she sobs. "I know I made choices that destroyed everything, and I hate myself for it. But it wasn't about him. It was about me feeling lost and broken." Her words hang in the air, and I struggle to make sense of it all. She sounds sincere, but sincerity doesn't fix what she broke. It doesn't erase the hurt, the feeling of being blindsided by the person I thought I knew better than anyone. "Why didn't you come to me?" I ask, my voice raw. Why didn't you tell me you felt that way? We could have worked on it. We could have fixed it. Her shoulders shake with silent sobs, and she covers her face with her hands. Because I was a coward, she whispers. Because I was afraid that even if I told you, it wouldn't change anything. I was scared of feeling like I'd failed, that I'd become someone you didn't want anymore. I stare at her, my heart pounding in my chest. The anger hasn't faded, but now there's something else mixed in: grief. Grief for the life we had, for the love that's now twisted and broken. Her words don't make what she did right, but they do show the cracks in our marriage, cracks I chose to ignore. But does that make it forgivable? I lean back, running a hand over my face, trying to process everything. The silence stretches between us, heavy and suffocating. I don't know what to feel, what to say. All I know is that nothing will ever be the same. I don't know if I can forgive you, I finally say, my voice cracking. I don't know if I even want to try, but I needed to hear the truth. So, thank you for that. She looks up at me, hope flickering in her eyes, but I can't give her any more than that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Her hope is like a fragile flame, barely flickering in the cold storm of our reality. I see it in her eyes, that desperate longing for something I'm not sure I can give her. Forgiveness. A chance at redemption. But right now, it feels impossible. The wound is too fresh, the betrayal too deep. She wipes her tears with shaking hands, looking more vulnerable than I've ever seen her. Is there any part of you that still loves me? She asks, her voice so small it's barely a whisper. It's a question I've been asking myself ever since the truth shattered my world. I want to give her a definitive answer, something that will finally give me clarity. But when I try to summon the words, they stick in my throat. I loved her deeply, wholly, and a part of me still feels that pull. But that love is tangled up with anger and hurt, twisted beyond recognition. How do I separate the love from the betrayal? How do I trust her again, knowing she's capable of such deception? I don't know. I finally admit, the honesty cutting into both of us. I wish I could say yes or no, but I don't know. All I feel right now is lost. She nods, her tears flowing freely again. I understand, she whispers, her voice thick with sorrow. I broke us. I know I have no right to ask for anything. But if there's ever a chance, even the smallest one, that you can find it in your heart to let me try to make this right, I'll spend the rest of my life doing everything I can. Her words hang in the air, a promise that feels empty and full all at once. I hate how much I want to believe her, to cling to the hope that we could one day rebuild what she destroyed. But I also know that hope is dangerous, that it could keep me trapped in a cycle of hurt and mistrust. I need space, I say, my voice firm. Real space. I need to figure out who I am without you, without this marriage defining me. I can't make any promises about the future, and I don't want you waiting around for something that might never come. The hope in her eyes dims, but she nods, accepting my words even though they hurt. Okay, she says. I'll give you the space you need. I'm so sorry. For everything. I nod, standing up and crossing my arms, more for my own comfort than anything else. You should go, I tell her. I need to be alone right now. She stands, her movements slow and hesitant, as if she's afraid that every step away from me will be the last one she ever takes. She hesitates at the door, glancing back at me one final time. I love you, she says, her voice breaking. I don't respond. I can't. The words might have meant everything to me once, but now they feel like a reminder of all we've lost. She waits for a moment, as if hoping for some sign that I'll call her back, but I stay silent. Finally, she turns the knob and steps outside, closing the door quietly behind her. The sound echoes through the empty house, and I'm left standing there, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. The quiet is deafening, and the house feels colder without her presence. I sit back down, burying my face in my hands. I thought facing the truth would bring me some kind of relief, some closure, but all I feel is emptiness. Maybe one day, I'll find a way to move forward. Maybe the pain will fade, and I'll figure out who I am without the pieces of my life that she broke. But for now, all I can do is sit with the heartbreak and hope that, eventually, the wounds will start to heal. The door closes, and the silence swallows the house. It feels like the end of something vast, a chapter that's been forcefully torn from the pages of my life. I sit there for a long time, unmoving, as if any sudden motion might shatter the fragile grip I have on my emotions. The quiet presses in, heavy and unrelenting, until I feel like I'm suffocating beneath the weight of it. But slowly, I force myself to take a breath, then another. Each one feels like a battle, a small victory against the despair that threatens to drag me under. I know that getting up, moving, doing something, anything, is the only way to keep from drowning in this sorrow. I rise from the chair, my legs stiff and unsteady, and walk to the kitchen. The mundane act of washing the empty beer bottles and tossing them into the recycling bin feels grounding, like a first step toward reclaiming some control over the chaos. I let the cool water run over my hands, watching the suds swirl down the drain. It's a simple, almost meaningless task, but it feels necessary, a tiny act of defiance against the pain. The house is too quiet, and it echoes with memories I'm not ready to face. Her laughter, the sound of her singing off-key in the shower, the way she used to hum while making breakfast. I can't stay here, not yet. I grab my jacket and head outside, needing the fresh air, needing to escape the ghosts of what we used to be. The morning air is crisp, biting at my skin, and I walk without a destination, just needing to keep moving. My feet carry me to a small park a few blocks away, a place we used to visit when things were simple and untainted. Children play on the swings, their laughter a sharp contrast to the heaviness in my chest. I find an empty bench and sit down, staring at the world moving on, indifferent to my heartbreak. It's strange how life keeps going, even when yours feels like it's fallen apart. People laugh, dogs bark, cars drive by, all of it oblivious to the shattered pieces of my life. And yet, there's something comforting in that too. A reminder that the world doesn't stop, that maybe, someday, I'll move on too. I pull out my phone, staring at the blank screen. No new messages, no calls. The silence from her feels deafening, but I remind myself that this is what I asked for. Space, time, a chance to figure out who I am, who I want to be without her. I don't know how long that will take, or if I'll ever find it in me to forgive her. But I do know one thing. I won't let this betrayal define me forever. The wind rustles the leaves, and I breathe it in, letting the cool air fill my lungs. I think of the things Mike said, of the small truths I managed to find about myself during that impromptu poker therapy session. Maybe I am stronger than I think. Maybe there's still a future worth fighting for, even if I can't see it clearly yet. For the first time in days, I feel a flicker of something. Hope, maybe, or just a stubborn desire to keep going. It's small, fragile, but it's enough to get me to stand, to take that first step forward, even if it's only a step away from the past. As I walk away from the park, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever let her back into my life, or if this is the beginning of a new chapter, one where I learn to rebuild on my own. But for now, I'm moving forward. And that, I realize, is enough. Thank you for following this intense journey of heartbreak and healing. If you've ever faced betrayal or have your own story of resilience, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share if this story resonated with you, and subscribe for more tales that explore the raw, emotional realities of life. Your experiences and support mean a lot. So join the conversation and let's keep sharing and growing together.